Well, some people just think, right, I'm going to use AI now. They don't put in the appropriate information. They don't check it over. And basically, they just want a generic answer. But actually, what we want is we want to see their unique experiences and how it relates to their roles and things like that. It's really quite obvious as well. If you are used to using AI, you can see in an instant and there'll be, different keywords which they won't bother to take out, like fosters collaboration or something like that, which I've never used the word fosters before in my life. It's quite concerning and challenging, trying to give them the information, but say, right, okay, but you've still got a brain.
Hello, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Learning Collab, where we collaborate with industry experts and experienced practitioners to bring you hints, tips and advice from the world of post-16 education to help improve learner experiences and outcomes. I'm Ros Prothero, Director of Panda Education and Training, and today we're exploring the world of artificial intelligence and how it's changing how we work as practitioners, and also how it can help our learners to adapt to a world where this is becoming the norm in the workplace and in education in general. Today, we're so pleased to welcome two practitioners who have well and truly embraced AI into their practice. And they're here to discuss what they found out so far. So we've got Lisa Beecham, who is Curriculum Development Specialist at Educator Training, and Connie Henry, who's Essential Skills Practitioner and Digital Peer Mentor at Gower College. Welcome both.
Hi.
Hello. And I'm going to come to both of you now, and we will address the panda in the room. There is a reason for this. And so let's start with that, because Lisa, I'm going to come to you first. Can you tell us a bit about your role at the moment and also your journey with AI in education so far, and yeah, why you're a panda?
Hi, Ros. Yes. I've been in work-based learning for over 20 years, and in the last 10 years especially, I've developed a huge passion for everything digital. AI just being one of those many things that enhances how we can do our jobs, but also the learner's experience, and then also how it can be transferred into the world of work to benefit directly the employers out there where our apprentices are working. So I've been doing quite a bit with AI recently, and the reason I am appearing as a panda today with a slightly different voice to what many people who know me would be expecting is basically because in my research, I've come across lots of software that for less than £15 a month can take a minute of audio or your voice or your image, and you can reprogram that and clone it and have that person saying, doing anything that you want. So my family and I have talked it through, and we've decided to not put our images or our voices on social media. So internally, professionally, I am still me. I appear as me. On social media recordings, I've opted not to, but I still want to tell people things about AI, things about work-based learning, and still get involved in these types of conversations.
Brilliant. And that's really interesting to me, actually, because it was only when you said this to us when we were planning today's podcast that made me think, it's like, crikey, for less than 15 quid a month, anybody could just take our identity, really, and sort of appear as us. So that's really interesting. And we will be talking about, the ethical issues and the sort of things we've got to look out for when using AI. But it's brilliant, and I'm glad you're appearing as a panda today. You could have chosen anything, but it's always the best.
I chose it specifically for you, actually.
Thank you very much, and we do appreciate it. And now, I want to be a panda, but I won't do that today. But so thanks, Lisa. It's great to have you here, and yeah, it's just really interesting to know that you can even get these things where you can change your voice. And when you came on this morning, I didn't recognize you because we've worked together for a long time, haven't we, over the years? It's like, who's this?
It's a very long time, yes. And it's odd for me as well that I'm having to think this way to make sure, that my family aren't scammed or that my professional reputation is protected. And it's a shame in a way that we have to go to these lengths, but, personal decisions.
Completely. And it's made me think about it as well, and how we present ourselves, in the future on socials, etc. So yeah, we'll have a little think about that and a chat. And also we've got Connie. Hi, Connie.
Hiya, thanks for having me. Yeah,
Pleasure.
Yeah, very interesting to hear about Lisa's choices and how she's used this technology. So yeah, I've been working at Garrett College Swansea for the last almost 6 years and teach digital literacy predominantly, but also do a lot of staff digital training within sort of our different campuses, looking at different new tools that have coming out, trialing them, and then giving sort of feedback to members of staff, showing them exactly what will be useful for them. So instead of saying there's a million things, try them all, we can sort of trial them and say, right, okay, actually, this would be really useful. I also do a lot of digital workshops within the community over the last year with some SPF funding. So working with the community and working a lot with schools as well. So with primary schools and secondary schools, being able to go out to them and then show them specific tools. So some of those are AI workshops, so how they can use them for their teaching specifically, and then other digital tools along that way.
Brilliant. And for the record, myself as well. So I started as an IT trainer back in the last century when Google was the new thing, and the internet was this sort of like witchcraft, and everybody was really worried about introducing it into the workplace and into education. And now we're faced with this new, and I think it's having a similar sort of reaction, especially to, practitioners in post 16, especially, I would say. They're like, we don't know how to use it. We're a bit scared of it. What is it? So, I think it's why we're doing this podcast. And actually, we also at Panda, we've started doing introduction to AI sessions just to help people bridge that first gap, and take their first steps. So I think we've all, the reason we invited you both today is, I think, all commonly out this passion for this new tool and the new things we can do with, specifically generative AI, I think, because that's something that's come about in the last couple of years. So let's get started with thinking about AI in work-based education, because that's our field. We all are practitioners in workplace education. So, Lisa, I'll start with you. How are you using AI to currently, educate or in your practice? What sort of things are you using?
I think I use AI at least twice every hour, kind of in my personal practice. I'm an early enthusiastic adopter, and I am firmly of the opinion that if you want to use these tools, the best thing you can do is just play with them, practice with them. So I use them for curriculum development, putting course outlines together, creating new scenarios specifically about workplaces so that individuals within sessions that are live taught or during e-learning, people can connect directly to what this would mean to me in my workplace. I create quizzes with it. I create forms with it. There is nothing that I don't use it for. And sometimes I get great results, and other times you really have to iterate and go back at it for several good attempts until you get where you want to be with it. But, I've built a few bots. One is a course scrutinizer, which after I've built a course, I pop it in there and it tells me whether I'm meeting the andragogy standards or whether I'm missing anything with regards to perhaps sustainability that I could pop in there. or other cross-cutting themes. So for me, it's a daily use tool, and I couldn't be without it. In terms of learners, we are trying to build those digital literacy skills with AI. So we are embedding it in our courses. We are teaching its use, and we are trying to get people to understand how it works so that when they leave and they go in and try it for themselves, they can do so safely.
Good. Because our learners are going into the wider world, of work, and they're in that world of work. It's not going anywhere, is it, Ian? We're all going to be using it at some point. Employers are now sort of embracing it. It seems to be slowly, perhaps in some areas, but definitely embracing it. So I guess it's about us giving our learners the skills to embrace it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think people coming through the school system will be using it. My kids are using it. It will be as natural as Google in a year or two's time. And I think to get in early and to start utilizing it at this point so that you can hone those skills as it develops, it would be the best way to start, really. I don't think you can break it, so why not have a try?
Yeah. Let's hope we can't break it. Connie, how are you using it at the moment? Anything different, Lisa?
Well, there's a lot of similarities. I think, trying to relate it to individual courses, because when I'm working in essential skills, we deal with all of the work-based learning apprentices, but then they might be doing leadership and management or advice and guidance, so there's a lot of variation with that. So giving them understanding as well how essential skills link to each of these different areas. And then by using AI, you can sort of say, well, actually, here you go. Here are all the different links. This is how it's useful. It can be useful then for assessors to know how they embed those skills as well. And then showing them how learners can use it within the workplace environment and different uses. When I'm creating content, I use AI all the time for that. Obviously, sort of working on the prompts, making sure that they are all accurate and giving them, quite a lot of information so I can get those tailored responses back. And then showing like all the other assessors, actually, look, here you go. You don't have to be spending so much time generating all content. Actually, you can pop your information in there and say, right, okay, can you give me some activity ideas, or can you generate a text on this document and stuff like that? So I think showing assessors how to use it, I probably do that a little bit more, and how they can create things, so how they can explain criteria to their learners, or generate the explanations for the criteria and then put them into like multimedia books. So it's also combining them with other tools like multimedia books, or putting them into workshops or activity ideas. Because if you're delivering workshops, it can be very bland, just standing, listening, having it that way. So actually asking it, right, can you give me some activity ideas to do in groups or teams, which are going to link to this topic? And it's amazing what kind of things can come up with it. And yeah, and then how to use it for teachers. So it's, all the time.
Yeah, all the time. And I am as well. And I think when you, like me, I spend a lot of time on my own in a room trying to come up with ideas. And we're all so busy, aren't we, at the moment? And I see it as an assistant. And I think that's what we've got to bear in mind. It's not going to replace us, not yet anyway. It's there to help us. I just find it so helpful to have a conversation with it.
I think that's a really good point, Roz. I'm a remote worker, so I work from home. I've got a great team that I can call upon that are great at supporting me. But when you need that instant sounding board or that instant idea generation, and as good as some of us are at coming up with these ideas and these engaging activities, to be able to push it that step further, or to be able to pick from a selection, gives us that boost, and then we're able to embed that and to take it forward. And I definitely agree with you when you said it's an assistant.
The robots aren't taking over just yet, hopefully. It's definitely an assistant. But I think, there's obviously benefits. We've already said about some of the benefits. I mean, for me, it saves time. But it just helps you sort of. It's like if you've got nobody there, it can sort of just like a sounding board and a little bit of feedback. But there's also challenges, right? So what challenges have you found? Connie, let's come to you first. Any challenges that we have to be aware of?
Yeah, well, I think giving it a lot of information, because if you give it just a simple prompt, you're going to get a very generic, very bland explanation. So actually giving it more information and asking it like, what output do you want? Do you want it in a table? Do you want bullet points? Do you want a summary? Do you want, 500 words? And then who your audience is, whether it's work-based learning, management learners. And I want you to be able to create activities for them. So it's giving them those prompts and letting them know what level it is. And that information will give you more tailored results. I think until I just find that, sometimes, well, you don't have one tool which does everything that you want it to do. I find that, you are having to jump from maybe one tool to the other because, well, work-based learning and education, we generally don't have the licenses for all of these, paid ones. So again, you're jumping for free ones and utilizing them that way.
Yeah, definitely. Lisa, what about you? Any challenges you faced?
Yeah, there are some big ones at the moment. The first one I think is, where does the information go? So in work-based learning, we all work for employers. I work for Educate Training. You work for Panda. You don't work for Panda. You are Panda. College. But our learners are all employed as well. So when it comes to using AI, you really have to be careful about what you put in, because there is scope for it, especially as Connie was saying, in free versions, which most of us are using. The information can be then used to train the model. So my saying at the moment is, don't put the ingredients to your secret sauce into AI if you don't want other people to be able to cook your recipe. And I think that really applies to how people use it as a tool. So don't put anything in there about your employer that other employers might be interested in. And it doesn't necessarily just mean GDPR, personal data. It can be absolutely anything about your business practice or process. So if you put it into the free one, it may at some point come out somewhere else to someone else. The other thing I've come across as well is I do commercial workshops, and we've got a suite of those at the moment, and our USP is we've put AI in all of them, as in we're using it or showing people how to use it as a tool. I have at least one person in every workshop that as soon as you introduce them to it, then almost exchanges AI for their own brain and thinking the whole time then that they're in that session. So every time a question is asked, they will ask AI. Every time they're asked to do a task, they will ask AI. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as they are then reviewing the output and deciding whether that's right for them. But what I'm finding is there are some individuals who don't double check the output, and then it's, I've got the answer, let's move forward. Yeah. And that's quite a challenge for me.
Yeah, and I think with that over-reliance as well, like we've seen it, well, some people just think, right, I'm going to use AI now. They don't put in the appropriate information. They don't check it over. And basically, they just want a generic answer. But actually, what we want is we want to see their unique experiences and how it relates to their roles and things like that. And then the misuse of AI can be, and it's really quite obvious as well. If you are used to using AI, you can see in an instant, and there'll be, different keywords which they won't bother to take out, like fosters collaboration or something like that, which I've never used the word fosters before in my life, and now it's everything there.
Just those keywords.
Yeah, but I think sometimes people can be like, oh, do you know what? I can't be bothered to think, and they don't think as much anymore, and they do just sort of result to just coming straight to AI. So I think it's quite concerning and challenging, but it's also then trying to sort of, trying to give them the information, but say, right, okay, but you still got a brain, you still got that, and you still want to be reading through it, making sure it's all right. And then using it as a starting block or like a scaffolding and then working your way through things. But I think that's another challenge, is trying to monitor it and,
Yeah,
be
it's augmenting how we think and what we want our responses to be. It's adding to them and taking them forward rather than replacing the thought process. For me, in terms of the output may be right, but is it very tailored to your scenario, to your situation? If you've prompted it correctly, it might well be. If you've just put a random question in that somebody's asked you on a workshop, maybe that needs a little review before you put it down on your slip chart paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the risks are there with both input, what we put into it, and also output, isn't it? So the input, we've got to be very careful what we put in and look at our settings to make sure that, if we don't want it to use it to train itself in the future, then we switch that option off. But also the output, we have to be checking it. And I always say to people, it's like the 80-20 rule, let it do, if you like, the lion's share of the work, but you have to have at least 20% of the input to make sure it's accurate, it's ethical. I mean, ethics, there are concerns here. And things like inclusivity as well. So, Lisa, you use, as do I, AI for like creating case studies. How have you found that? Do you find that the case studies are giving you sort of like a bog standard, what it thinks a general person should look like? Or is it sort of good for representation? What's your experience?
I am quite aware that if you allow it to create the scenario or the case study based on what it thinks you want, then you will very much get a white middle class American man answering your question. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing, but I am saying that it's all in your setup. It's all in what you're thinking through. I did a LinkedIn post a while back, and I asked it to create an image of a boardroom, for example, and it was 12 white men sat round a table. And I think that if you keep that image in your head when you're asking it things, unless you change the narrative and ask for something different, I want a boardroom with 50% of the... Yeah, 2 women and a panda. How diverse are we? But that's what I mean. You have to ask for it, and you have to be aware. I think the bias, we all have bias, and I'm not saying that human bias is less so than AI, but in AI we're more aware that it will do that, so we try to sort of counterbalance it then with our prompting. But if you leave it to its own devices and you ask it for a scenario, it will opt for a privileged white position in general. But you can also turn that around, and you can ask it for, can I have a perspective from a lower income family in an area within the UK, for example, that has low employability. And you can be really specific about how you want to build those scenarios. So I think, it's how you structure what you're asking for, and that's where you need to take the care.
Yeah. It's definitely down to our prompts. And like you said, Connie, you've got to give it detail and, put exactly what you need back. So, I was doing some case studies the other day, and like you said, Lisa, it just came out as, quite well-to-do sort of white male sort of perspective. So I went back, and this is the key, isn't it, to AI? You keep going back and having the conversation and asking it to try again. Where, you can't do that with Google. That's the big difference. You're having this conversation. You're saying, well, actually, no, I don't want that. I want you to think of something more intersectional, more of a perspective from this or that sort of perspective, if you like. And I think as long as we're having that conversation, we're aware and we keep going back and forth until we get what we want. That's okay, because in the past, over the past year, we've sort of introduced AI to people, and they're like, oh no, I tried it and it didn't come up with what I want, so I'm not using it. Don't trust it. It's like, okay, have the conversation, keep going back and forth, and it will get there.
Absolutely. I like using the search feature at the moment. I like asking it to pull in information about a demographic or a place in Wales or a certain audience type. I like to go and ask it to find that information and then base case studies on that information. So I think as fast as it is improving, there are more opportunities to pull that information in more easily. And I definitely think that, that real time, I've gone away, I found the report. So things like Future Generations, Wales and things like that, when you're developing scenarios and case studies, put the link in there or ask it to go find that information out and bring those elements into those case studies by request and not allow it just to decide what that case study should be.
Yeah, definitely. I've been doing that recently, sort of giving it a link saying, right, use this. Now, give that. It just be really, really specific. And I think that pays dividends. I mean, we're learning, right? Because this generative AI has only been around since November 22. So, it's and I liked something you said to me the other day, Lisa, I think you called yourself an enthusiastic amateur. Is that correct?
Similarly, that's what I am. You know me, Roz. I am always self-taught. I'm a huge nerd. I love anything digital, and I've got to get involved with it. And that's my persona. That's my character. I just love having a play and seeing what it can do. But I encourage everybody to do that because that's how you pick up the tips. That's how you get better at it. And I see, for example, my husband, who is the opposite of me when it comes to digital, and then I see him struggle to get to grips with things which I know will make his life easier. So I am encouraging him to pick it up at these early stages so that as it develops, he's there with it rather than being left behind.
Yeah. No, I think it's so key, isn't it? It's just playing and having a go and then just thinking, do you know what, you've got to keep going at some of these things because AI, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's not taking jobs. It's going to maybe, but people who can use it effectively might. And, that's the scary thing. So I think everyone should be having a go and playing with it and seeing the different tools that are out there, talking to other people, because there's so many people in the organizations that you work with. You might have dabbled with some different things, have some different ideas on it. Your institution should have like different CPD opportunities or, the ones that you're offering at Panda. So it then gives you those tailored opportunities to see what it's being used for in your specific area. And then things on LinkedIn as well. They're always sort of saying, right, okay, here's some new AI tools which can be used. And it's, I think, jumping on some of those bandwagons and having a go and talking with other people and, being in that kind of a community where other people want to learn and share and things like that. It's really important.
And there's so many tools at the moment. There's
just so many.
It's wading through them and finding the ones. And like you said, Connie, you do the research. So like the stuff done after, you sort of say, these are the key ones. These work really well for us.
Yeah.
I mean, like you, I also just look at the free ones because the people that we teach, they're not going to have a budget or they're not going to be allowed to go and buy stuff. So it's about looking for those really good free tools at the moment.
I was just going to say that from a free tools perspective, there's also what their employers will allow them to use. So one of the questions we ask on workshops where we use AI as a tool is before you go into the workplace and start applying these tools, talk to your organization about whether or not it's authorized. So, a lot of organizations have Copilot, but then a lot of organizations don't. They haven't subscribed to it yet. So check in with them and make sure that whichever tool you're using, whether it's free or not, that it's authorized by your organization.
Oh, absolutely. And what I'm finding as well, because we've started doing AI sessions for businesses, and I'm speaking to people, I'm going, well, what does your AI policy say? No, what AI policy? We haven't got one. God, we need to get one. And yes, I think, I would always say to any organization, get something in place, guide your colleagues, to what your organization wants. And yeah, for the users, check that policy and make sure, check with them, because it's still new. And we do, I absolutely believe we still need to be careful. There's lots of considerations, ethical, personal data, etc. As you said, Lisa, there's so many factors. And where's it going? So right in the future, I mean, this is all sort of very new to us, and it's very exciting. We find it, I think, very exciting, all three of us. What does the next 5 to 10 years look like for AI, do we think? I mean, are we going to be looking at this podcast or listening to it in 5 years' time? And yes, not. We were wrong.
Well, we've been cringing at how little we understood it all. I think we will be... I don't want to say we won't be too much further along within work-based learning, but we aren't known for our fast adoption of digital tools. And I would like to think that people will get hold of AI and they'll start using it on a daily basis, and they won't be able to live without it. And it will get better. It will become safer, and so on and so on. But I think realistically, given that, some people within organizations now aren't even using the Microsoft packages fully, I know some people who use paper diaries over Outlook calendars. We've got a way to go. But the thing about it is it's filtering into everything in the background. So we don't necessarily have to be proactive in speaking out AI, because within 5 years, it will be in everything.
Well, it seems like it is now, but I think it's definitely going to sort of work its way into, as you say, everything in a much more sort of natural way. Perhaps we won't even perhaps
know. No, it's there.
It's there.
I'm not sure whether that's safe. That is safe.
No.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Lisa. Work-based learning, we're not the quickest at adapting sort of digitally, and sometimes it can be sort of pulling people kicking and screaming to try and use some of the features that we have. But I will say, not all, but you'll have a big proportion of people is when they do come along, that actually this makes my life so much easier.
Agree.
So, yeah. When they get that moment, they're like, I'm converted. Come on, let's go play.
Absolutely. It's getting them in the room, isn't it, to show them the power of it and get that light bulb switched on. And once that happens, they're away.
Yeah.
I love that. And people go, oh my word, what is this? I had it with a business I was at before Christmas, and this one is a very, very experienced, knowledgeable assessor. She's going, oh, I've got to prepare for this thing. Tomorrow is being landed on me. I haven't got the time. I went, well, have you tried this? And I showed her ChatGPT, and it was like I'd shown her Witchcraft. And she was like, right, I'm going to try it. And she was like, why aren't they telling us about this? This is a game changer.
Who is they, Roz? Who is supposed to be telling them about this? Who told me about it?
You've got to go and find out.
Yeah. But then I think you also have, we've got digital peer mentors, and we try to put on workshops, but then you've also got, you might just have the same people coming to the similar sort of workshops, and then actually the ones who maybe really could benefit from it the most, they tend to shy away from it. So unless you've sort of make it compulsory, maybe they're not going to sort of volunteer themselves to come and see the new features. But I think people are adapting to it more, and I am getting more requests for training on it, like different roles within the college. So it's not just, the education staff. So I'm going to be doing some with the admin team and stuff, and introduce them and show them how it can be used within their roles, because it's so diverse. But yeah, I think there's lots of different places it could go, whether so in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, AI as a whole, I think there's amazing things that can be done. It'd be great, to expand on personal learning. So on the learning platforms, actually, learners can then adapt them and change them for the learning styles or, their accessibility needs just, quite quickly. That would love to see that, because you can use obviously AI to differentiate and to be able to help support learners. But I'd love to see an actual learning platform which learners could adapt and change themselves. That would be what I'd like to see.
And I'm sure we will see that before on. So look, let's sort of give people some tips from what we've learned so far. And as I said, I really liked the title Enthusiastic Amateur. I think that's definitely me. I don't think there's any expert yet in this. I don't think so, because there's even developers, AI developers, that are doing stuff and things are happening from, what they're developing that they didn't even envisage, so even the developers aren't fully, knowledgeable in what's
more in control of it, perhaps. There's a few lucky accidents and a few oh dear moments that are coming out of development, aren't there? So even the people who are creating AI are not fully in control.
Yeah, I just think it's ever changing, isn't it? So it's hard to sort of know everything. So yeah, enthusiast, but far from being an expert, because as soon as I sort of start finding things, something else will be created, and I can't keep up.
So for what we've found out so far, okay, has anybody got any key tips? So like simple ways for people that are like not too sure about what this AI thing is. Where do you start?
I've got a good one that came up recently. We create e-learning as well as do the classroom stuff. And one of the tools that I came across recently is called Napkin AI or napkin.ai. And essentially you put your text in there and it can convert it into a visual.
I think I've signed up for that. I've signed up for so many, but I think I remember.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So getting started with things like that is a good way to dip your toe. But I just think getting involved with ChatGPT or Gemini and just starting to develop your conversational style with it and learn that it wants to please you. So it will give you everything it knows about everything unless you tell it, I just want a couple of bullet points on. Get me started on this, or give me an outline and see where it goes from there. That's how I would suggest people get out there and start. Dip your toe.
Yeah, definitely. Like I generally sort of recommend ChatGPT as a sort of starting point, but it's the same as Copilot or Gemini, but just that kind of thing. And if you don't know how it can help you, you can even just ask it and say, right, I am teaching this class for these learners. What kind of information can you give me to support my workshop or anything like that? Are there any tips you can do me, or just how can I enhance my lesson? But you can ask it like, what use can you be to me? And it'll actually give you answers. And remember to say please, because if it does take over the world, it has to remember you've got manners.
Dad, I always say that.
Thank you. But yeah, so I think using it, and then just being more specific with your prompts and giving it that bit more information. But, as we've talked about, you can always sort of tweak and edit as you're going through. One thing that I found great is Magic School AI. So that's amazing.
Love that.
Education. Yeah. And there's so much on the free version as well. You don't get as much tailoring then after you've done it, because you would need the paid version. But the amount of tools that are on there, so generating questions from YouTube videos, or creating lesson plans or activity ideas, creating your own custom chatbots, creating classrooms, so then people don't even need to have a login detailed. So you've got your custom bots. I've had teaching teachers how to use it, and then they were having conversations with historical figures. And so
it's so much more interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you can go through and check what they've been doing.
Talking about bots, I would also encourage people to explore the GPTs. So there's quite a lot of community bots on ChatGPT that if you go up to the top left and you hit explore, there's so many different things that you can do with it that's already in place for you. So you don't have to make these things. I would also say TikTok for me is a great source of ideas in terms of how I can make it work better. So I saw TikTok the other day of somebody using the Canva GPT. So they went into Chat GPT and they went and found the Canva one and they told it what they were thinking of. And then it took them directly to Canva and presented it to them and went, "You mean this?" I thought it was mind-blowing how quick it was. And it was real time as well. So for me, I get a lot of my, oh my gosh, I could do that through following people who use AI on TikTok as well.
Yeah, love TikTok as a learning. Well, I watch it for lots of different things. I'm now hooked. But yeah, learning, I've got like a whole saved folder for IT because they're very quick, short videos. So it's very quick to sort of flick through. You can search for, different things that you're interested in. So it's a very quick, accessible way of learning as opposed to watching a whole 20-minute, 30-minute YouTube video in a minute. You can be like, oh, that's how easy it is. Save it for later. You can go and try it. Web pages or presentations and things. So that's amazing because you can actually give it all of the content that you want, ask it to just keep that content. It can summarize it. It can add AI to it. Choose your theme. Do you want a presentation or a web page or a document? And then all of a sudden, it's created. But it's actually got the content that you want it to have. And I love that. So it's not just generic AI stuff. It's got yours.
Well, I think from my point of view, I've sort of started looking at all the tools that I've spent years trying to get educators to embrace, like Kahoot, like Padlet, all the ones that are now sort of hopefully seen as quite sort of standard tools to use. But all of those things now have AI built into them. I'm trying to get people to use those aspects as well. I think is really beneficial, like a good place to start, if they know a tool like Kahoot or like Padlet, especially, have really upped their game with what they offer in terms of AI. It's a good place to start,
Do you find, though, that there's a lot of talk on social media, such as LinkedIn, about how to use AI in different fields, like sales, for example, but not a lot of people talking about how you could use it as a teacher, a trainer, a tutor within the work-based learning environment? I definitely think that maybe people like ourselves need to shout about it more and put those tips out there for our work practice, because it's overwhelming how much information. I mean, if you're in sales or marketing, where do you look? Every second post is about that. But if you're in work-based learning, you probably haven't got time to look at LinkedIn for a start. But if you did, it would be great to see some top tips and tools from people that know that they work within the work-based learning environment.
Yeah, I'm part of this collaborative group called Creative Club, with the AI in the middle. And it's been set up basically just to be a community hub for, it could be work-based learning, further education, higher education, just to collectively get together for half an hour one morning each month. And it's just sharing what's worked, what hasn't, just quick bites, and then sort of coming together to sort of ask questions. And it's really, really lovely. And
how can I join?
I will send you a link. We've got a meeting Friday morning. It's amazing, and you're just in that community where actually people are just there just to help. And she's done so much in this space. She started doing a blog for community over competition, and I worked with her for Techtober. I don't know if either of you saw that in October. So it was a big collective of over the month of October then, where we had different webinars on different software tools that we're using, which work within FEHE and work-based learning. So those specific ones, and it was free for everyone. And we just sent out this information. Just join in if you can. We released all the recordings. And again, so I think having that lovely sort of community aspect of it is really important. But yeah, more than happy to share those details, because it's nice just to come in and then see what other people are using and working on.
Oh, it's brilliant, because I actually looked at the flipbook that you created for Techtober, and it was brilliant. I loved it. Loads of really interesting videos in there. So yeah, we'll put the links if anybody's watching this, and you can see Lisa as Panda.
With inequality racial movement, I must put that in there. It's not copying me when it's laughing or shrugging its.
Is it not?
Yeah, no, that's not me. That's the Panda.
Oh, she looks surprised. But yeah, we'll put the links in the description underneath the YouTube video, so check it out there. But yeah, I mean, there's so much to come, I think. It's so much potential. And I think, just to finished, one of the things that I've started using a lot of is TurboScribe. Have you heard of that? Brilliant. You can put in a video and it will transcribe it for you. But I've started using it for like professional discussion. So if I'm having a recorded professional discussion with the learner, I will then TurboScribe it, and it is a free tool. You get 3 videos you can transcribe a day. And it just gives me a timestamp of everything I've said, and I just edit it. You have to edit it and you have to, take stuff out, but it gives you the key points. So it's just a really good place to start writing your report. So that's how I'm using it at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's little things like that.
Yeah, I use the one in Office 365 Word, so the transcribe there. So if I have the discussions with my learners, then you've got the link to the audio recording, and then you can have timestamps and speakers. And again, so again, that was great for accessibility. I had the learner then who didn't want to be writing up the whole review. So, we had this discussion, it transcribed it all. I had the timestamps and the actual recording to refer back to. So, those tools are so useful. Really, really good.
Absolutely brilliant. So look, gosh, we've talked about lots today. Thanks both. I think basically, in summary, AI is here to stay, so let's embrace it. Hopefully, any final thoughts? What would you say, Connie, your final thought on AI for today? What would you say to people maybe a little bit hesitant?
Be curious and just have a go. Have a look at some of those tools and talk to other people to get their experiences, but just dip your toe in and have a little look and see what it can do, because once you start using it, you'll realize actually it can be such an aid to help, and it just adds another string to your bow, and you can just create so much more and then free up time to do other things. So that's really good. It might take that little bit of time in the first instance just to start using it, but once you start using it, you'll realize that it'll pay dividends in the end and you'll save so much time. Yeah,
definitely. What do you think, Lisa?
I think that if you're a bit concerned about starting off with using it for work, use it for outside of work to begin with. So one of the things I did initially was to ask it to meal plan a week of meals for my fussy eaters. And I told them what food they liked and to keep to that food group. And it would plan my menu, or, using it to plan your itinerary to go on holiday. Or if you're a parent and one of your children is acting up and you're not quite sure how to handle it, ask AI and just start practicing with it to see what it can do. And at the point where you realize what it can do, your brain will automatically then start thinking about that in the context of the workspace. So start with personal. You can take photographs of your plants in the garden and ask it, what's wrong with this? Why is it dying? And it's just, familiarity, isn't it, really? So it's getting in there and putting that app on your phone and seeing what it can do for you.
Yeah, definitely. And then those recipes as well, like you can say, this is what I've got in the fridge. Can you make a meal? Can you give me options which are like Mexican style or Italian style? Right, can you make that gluten free? Or, and you can adapt those. And yeah, I use it for planning my trips, or, where's best to visit this time of the year, or what can I do? I enjoy culture and history and food. Can you give me some recommendations? I've got kids. What can we do? So it's sort of using it and then tweaking as you go along. So yeah, definitely use it for personal.
It's a great way to end. Thanks, ladies. And, I think, as I said, any links that we've got from what we've said today, some really good ideas there. I'll put them in the description underneath our video version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. So go and follow us on the socials, find us on YouTube, hit subscribe and all of that malarkey. And I think it's fair to say all three of us are involved in trying to spread the word. Right, and that's what we're trying to do, is to try and spread the word of AI and how it can help. But also, yes, be cautious. Think about, the input, what you're putting into it, but also be careful about the output and just check it. So, but do have a go and just have fun with it to start with. So, yeah, as I've already mentioned, we do have some workshops coming up, like an introduction for those of you that are maybe don't know where to start. We're doing an introduction to AI for educators. We've also got one coming up for businesses. And it's just we do a practical workshop to get people started. And I know you do the same, Connie. You know, it's just sort of trying to get people gripped by the bug that we have been gripped by. So it's brilliant. And, you know, hopefully in 5 years' time, we'll come back, look at this podcast and see that it's evolved. And yeah, we knew nothing at this point.
Absolutely.
And it's fun. It's fun to see what happens, right? So thanks both for today. In our next podcast, we will be looking at the importance of employer engagement. So join us for that one. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube and all the usual places. But thanks for that, ladies. Just to let you know, we have had an AI helper in the background because we record this on Zoom. So I'll also put that out as well on our socials just to show you how good that can be. So we've had that recording us in the background. Obviously, I will vet it and make sure it's accurate. Yeah, I'll be putting that on the socials just to sort of say how successful or not that was. But again, another great tool. See, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So we've got to start using it. But thanks both for joining us today. And well,
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Elisa. Thanks, Connie.
Right, thanks. Bye bye now.